Welcome to the MovNat channel. My name's Alex and I've got a tutorial for you about jumping from a height and landing in a roll. I've done a video in the past about jumping from a height and landing in a squat position or a foot hand landing, but we're talking about jumping from a higher height and taking up more of an impact, which means we're using the roll in order to transfer that downwards vertical energy into horizontal movement. Let's get started. The first drill we're gonna do is reaching forward with the hands and almost doing a little bit of a shoulder push-up. So I'm putting my hands together so that my thumb and forefinger are touching with each hand, and then I'm trying to put my shoulder into that space. I'm not actually gonna get my shoulder down, but it's basically helping me develop some control as I move into the roll position. Having the feeling of reaching the shoulder into this space will make it easier for you to land on your back and less likely to land on your shoulder capsule when you're doing the roll. You can practice this as if it were a kind of push-up exercise, doing repetitions, coming back to that squat position with the hands on the ground, and then reaching forward to get the shoulder close to the hands. Next, you can try actually rolling over, reaching the hands out, bringing the shoulder into that space, lifting the leg, and then pushing yourself over. Make sure when you're doing your roll that it's your shoulder blade or back that's coming across the ground and not your shoulder capsule like here. You don't want to land directly on your shoulder. You can try speeding it up a little bit, getting a bit of that momentum going, and getting yourself back up to your feet. Again, if this is somewhere you're stuck, you can do a few repetitions and turn this into a bit of a routine. Make sure you try both sides and don't only do your dominant side. Exhaling as you go for the roll is going to help a lot in order to coordinate the movement. You can also tighten your roll by sliding your hand, taking up less space in your roll. So if you're sliding your hand back instead of reaching out in front of you, you're going to have a tighter roll. So make sure that you practice different distances so that you know what to do in order to change the distance that you need to roll. Next, let's practice loading our arms. We're going to put our hands out in front of us and lift the legs, kind of like a little bunny hop. When you get comfortable with this, you can try and keep your legs up in the air a little bit longer. And you can do this through the center or bringing your legs to one side of your body. The point here is to get used to loading the arms as a point of support. Try getting your hips higher. This is starting to simulate a bit of the first stage of the landing when you're doing a dive roll. The point here is just to develop that stability and comfort of moving your weight onto your arms. When you're ready to start practicing the dive roll, get comfortable with this drill. From a standing position, hinge at the hips and let one leg come up behind you as you catch yourself with your hands. Keep your supporting leg fairly straight because lowering your hips is more like a regular roll, and keeping your hips high starts to condition you for the dive roll. You can also do this from a squat position, lifting your hips and then lowering yourself into an eccentric push-up. Try this from standing, same drill as before, except we're lowering ourselves as much as we can into a push-up, but trying to get the shoulder into that space between our hands like we were doing with the roll in the first place. Next, you can actually descend into the roll and let yourself go. So lowering yourself down and then rolling. Take your time practicing this technique and get it nice and smooth so that you are landing on the right spot every time you do this roll. Dive rolls are more about lowering yourself down onto your hands, using your arms to absorb some of the landing, whereas a regular roll, you're kind of foregoing that altogether. Let's try hopping and landing in a deep knee bend a few times, and then putting your hands on the ground, and then foot hand landing, and then landing in a front vault on the ground. Try landing in the side vault on the ground. And then finally, you can try your roll, starting with a tight roll, sliding that arm behind you so you can take up less space. Try that a few times, and then try making your roll a little longer. Reaching out in front of you instead of sliding the arm, and trying to let the foot come off the ground before your hands touch. So you're jumping first and then landing with the hands. There are long rolls and tall rolls when it comes to dive rolling. And when you're doing long dive rolls, it helps to try and get some obstacles to jump over. Try to pick obstacles you're comfortable bumping into so you don't psych yourself out. And you can also practice next to an obstacle to gauge whether you can nail it or not. Tall obstacles work as well, but again, use something you can bump into and that it's not gonna throw you off so that you can practice until you can actually clear it. All right, when you're ready, you can find a hip height obstacle and lower yourself down, jump off, land, and practice your roll. You can do all three of the roll variations we did today, the tight roll, the longer roll, and jumping off of the ground into a dive roll. Before you do this on a higher height, make sure you're really comfortable with this technique. But eventually you'll be able to do each variation of these techniques comfortably from a height. This little tutorial was packed with little tools for you to use. Don't just run through it once and think you've absorbed everything. Look at what parts of this tutorial are movements or exercises that you feel that you could benefit from, and try to integrate those into a regular routine so that you can get better at the patterns that make this movement effortless. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.